Good evening. It is 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022, and this regular meeting of the Sandpoint Planning and Zoning Commission is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am Chairman John Hastings presiding. Also present are Commissioners Mo Stunkel, Slate Camp, Luke Ahmet, Amelia Boyd, Ben McGran, and Nick Polito. We will now recite the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone will please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any general announcements from commissioners or from city staff? Hearing none. Next on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the July 19th, 2022 meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. New business. The first item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing on a case number PS 220002, request for the Boyer Farms Phase 2 preliminary plat, a 25 lot subdivision. The property is legally described as Lot 1, Block 3, Boyer Farms Estates, Section 10, Township 57 North, Range 2 West, Boise Meridian, Bonner County, Idaho, according to the plat thereof recorded in Book 18 of Plats, page 61. A notice of public hearing was published in the Bonner County Daily Bee, the city's newspaper of record, on July 12th, 2022. The order and procedure for the public hearing this evening will be as follows. Explanation of the subject of the public hearing by city staff. Presentation by applicant. Please note that commissioners should address their questions to the applicant at that time. Opening of the public hearing, at which time the public may provide testimony. Questions should be asked of those testifying at that time. The order for those providing testimony will be as follows. In favor, neutral, then opposed. The applicant's rebuttal testimony, at which time final questions may be asked of the applicant. Please note that if new facts are elicited during rebuttal, the public will be given an opportunity to comment on any new facts. Then we'll close the public hearing and the commission will deliberate. No new information may be provided after the hearing has been closed, with questions directed only to city staff during deliberation. Before we proceed any further, I would like to ask for confirmation from each commissioner, please, that you have had no ex parte contact and have no conflict of interest as pertains to this request. Nick? Ben?
No.
Amelia?
None.
None here.
None. None. None.
Sounds good. I will now yield the floor to City Planner Amy Tweeten for an introduction of this request and explanation of the application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is public hearing on case number PS 220002. Boyer Farms Phase 2 is a proposed 25 lot subdivision on approximately 5 acre site in the RM zoning district. The property is north of Woodland Drive and would connect Samuelson Avenue and North Boyer Road by the extension of Jersey Street, as shown in the upper right corner. Whoops. So you see where the existing Boyer Farms is, and that Jersey Street has already been created. And this is the property just to the west. Again, it is a replat of Lot 1 of Block 3 of that initial Boyer Farms Estates. You'll see it is a continuation in the pattern of the single family subdivision. And again, they're predominantly 50 feet or more in width and over 5,000 square feet lots. I just went out today to take some pictures of the infrastructure that's in place and the lots that are ready to start building on the first phase. The top pictures are looking east. And then the proposed phase 2 is on the bottom, and that's looking west. Again, the subdivision meets Title 10 requirements. The public right-of-way dedicated is 60 feet. The lots meet the minimum zoning requirement for single family. Even though this is in the RM district, these are consistent with the RS single family zoning. And just the infrastructure that is proposed would be a continuation of what is there currently. There'll be sidewalks on both sides. And again, the street trees and the road section, as was shown, what's currently there now will just be continued straight to Samuelson. And based on review of the proposal to city code and planning documents, staff finds that the preliminary plat is in substantial compliance. And should the commission recommend approval of the Boyer Farms Estates Phase 2 preliminary plat to city council, the following conditions should be incorporated at a minimum. The first condition, no lot shall have a drive access onto Samuelson Avenue. And the second, a development agreement to include standard terms and conditions associated with public infrastructure improvements shall be provided to city council for approval. After receiving public comment and deliberation, the commission may recommend to city council that I put the wrong plat, not Roberson Plans. This is Boyer Farms Phase 2. Be approved with conditions or denied. That is all I have.
Thank you. Do commissioners have any question for staff at this time? I just have one. I'm looking at this plat that I'm looking at here. There wasn't any plan for there to be a driveway directly onto Samuelson, was there? I mean, that was one of the conditions. But
yeah, even if you look at their infrastructure, they weren't intending to. So this is the south side of here's the road. So they are showing driveways onto Jersey Street.
So that's not a change. That's just to make sure it doesn't change.
Correct.
Thank you. With that, I will now yield the floor for the applicant's presentation. If the applicant's representative will please step to the podium and introduce yourself. If you can get through the crowds.
My name's Kelly Carroll. I grew up in Spokane, and we've come to Northern Idaho for years and years. And so we set out looking to do some stuff in Sandpoint several years ago, and felt that this type of residential neighborhood would be good for this property, this specific property, because it's got nice deep lots so people can have backyards, and yet they're narrow lots so they can have smaller homes on those. So I've never done this before other than the first phase, but I didn't have to speak. So I'm not sure what all I need to say other than Amy's done a great job. Sarah's, everybody at the city's done a great job, and we appreciate you guys considering it. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you step down, do commissioners have any questions for the applicant before we proceed to public hearing?
I'm just curious, what size will the homes be?
You know, probably in the neighborhood of 1,500 to 2,400 square feet. Our initial thought was to build them single story. So that's probably what we'll do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'm not sure if this is a question for Amy or for you, but the planned extension of that road, the unnamed road to go to the south there through those other properties, is there plans for you to pick those up and develop them too, or what's the plans with that?
Those are there. It's a separate ownership on that property. The running the road to the south Holstein place was a condition of the first subdivision permit.
Okay.
So I think the idea is, yes, to have that connect through The Cookmans, I believe, own that property, so.
And I can give a little more information. There is it's called the Cookman subdivision that's to the south. That had a preliminary plat approved. So that street in the plat goes all the way south to Woodland. Currently, I'm waiting to hear from the property owner. They are nearing the end of your preliminary plat is only good for so long.
Right.
And they're going to need to get an extension because they only have, I believe it was till February 23 to get a final plat approved, and they haven't started on the infrastructure yet. But they are interested in moving that forward. So this would connect to that subdivision and ultimately to Woodland.
Thank you.
I just have a question on the continued development of that property, even though it's zoned residential multifamily. I think I read in there and heard it said that you were going to continue to do single family.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. That's all I have. Most.
Yeah, that's pretty much my question too, is did you consider multifamily? And if you did, why didn't you go that route?
So it's our understanding there's quite a bit of multifamily coming online, particularly to the west of us. And our expertise with my partners, we felt most comfortable with single family residential here. And we felt that I feel like it's a really good use of that piece of property too, as opposed to putting in apartment buildings.
Thank you.
And
when I set out trying to put together a subdivision a couple of years ago, all I heard from all the realtors was that Sandpoint needed more and more single family residential properties. So that's really kind of where we decided to start with that, and we've just stuck to it. We were gonna do the whole 49 lots initially, but we had to do a traffic impact study. So the only reason we split it up was to do the traffic impact study. It gave us more time to do that.
any other questions, commissioners?
So now that you say the traffic impact study, so what is the outcome of that? I know that has been a requirement of most applicants. It feels like it's a layer there, but I'm not quite sure what we're asking to be accomplished with those traffic impact studies.
Well, they project traffic counts, what intersections are going to have impact. So to a point is what is the impact of this subdivision on the overall system? So there might be, and in this situation, it's pretty small road extension, but in situations like University Place, there were offsite improvements that had to be made as well. The analysis of this one didn't show that it would warrant offsite improvements.
Okay.
But that's what we're just trying to forecast the impact of this subdivision, not just on the street that it creates, but the overall transportation system.
I saw the report in there and it was lengthy, so I kind of got bored of it real quick, but I saw a number of like 589 trips. I can't remember if that was per week or per day or what it was, but
8.
What was that?
508
per
week.
Per week. So what's the threshold then that says if you have this many trip counts, then you have to have a designated turn lane or other traffic improvements?
I don't know if possibly Amanda can answer that question, but I think a lot of different things come into play, but I will ask Amanda if she can.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amy. Mr. Chair, may I address the question?
Yes.
So Amy accurately described what we're looking for there, which is definitely both on-site access recommendations from a traffic engineer, such as spacing from intersections would be something like an on-site improvement that a traffic analysis would reflect changes. Off-site is looking at and you ask specifically about what triggers it, there's not a specific number. So we look at how many trips is a development going to be generating based upon its use. If it's over 300 trips per day, it's not per week, it's per day, then a traffic study is required. So a traffic study is looking at not only motorists, but also pedestrians and bicycles and that interconnectivity. So for offsite improvements related to a traffic study, they might look at an intersection and say that this particular development is contributing, for example, so many additional trips at this location that now we do need a turn lane because the level of service has reduced lower than what City Council has adopted as our acceptable level of service. So if a new turn lane is to be installed in that location, we might run a calculation and determine that that turn lane could cost $50,000. And then our code provides that we can charge extraordinary impact fees for offsite improvements. So then we would potentially charge a developer the $50,000 for an additional turn pocket based upon the fact that it lowered that intersection below the accepted level of service, if that makes sense. Or it might say you need a signal at this location because this development was so large that now we need a signal, and then they could contribute to the cost of a signal. So it's not a certain number of trips necessarily requiring a turn lane. That's why it's an analysis. It's very much dependent upon the location, the number of vehicles, and what delay ultimately is being caused.
Thanks for the explanation.
You're welcome.
If I could follow up on that too, and who's best to answer, but I noticed it said that it would be a D as far as a grade, which is considered acceptable. Is that the current grade as well?
So the city of Sandpoint has accepted a level of service of D within city limits on our streets. So the highway system has an acceptable level of C, and that's set by the state within our jurisdiction here, and an MOU that we have in place with them. So that's correct. The current, so for each intersection that's analyzed, it looks at what is its performance today, what's its level of service, and it might be a B, right? Or in some cases, it might be a D. The fact that this development's number of trips did not make a D go to an F or a B to a C, meaning it has no effect on those intersections of substance, is why there's no request for additional fees. We've seen it change it minor enough where we've only charged an applicant $3,000, right? Like it's very scalable to the volume that a development is applying to the volume that exists at that location. It's a ratio.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, commissioners? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there are no additional questions, I will now recite the public hearing rules and procedures. Please note that as provided in the notice of public hearing and as stated within the meeting packet posted on the city website, all written comments are to be delivered to the city clerk. Those comments that were received by way of that stated procedure were either included in the meeting packet or, if received in time prior to the meeting, were forwarded to the commissioners. This process must be followed to ensure comments are properly included in the permanent hearing record. I would like to ask for your attention at this time, please, as I recite the standards for public testimony during this evening's public hearing. Testimony shall be directly address the subject at hand. Testimony shall not be personally derogatory towards any individual, organization, or business. Public comment opportunities are for comment only. Do not direct any questions to the staff or to the commission. In the interest of time, testimony shall not be repetitious, and each speaker is allotted no more than 3 minutes. If your testimony fails to comply with these standards, it may be declared out of order and you will be asked to cease. Those here in chambers who wish to speak will need to complete a sign-up form handed to the clerk. Do not approach the dais. The forms are available on the table by the door. For those on Zooms, we will have an opportunity to speak. Those in attendance are not to disrupt this meeting or the business at hand that is being taken up by the commission. Disruptive behavior includes clapping, disruptive noises, and comments or exclamations from the audience. We will now prepare to proceed with the public hearing. Just a reminder, in the interest of time, please do not repeat prior comments made by others, but simply state your support for those comments. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes. For those participating on Zoom, when your name is called, you will see a prompt on the screen asking whether you would like to unmute. Then you will need to unmute yourself in order to be heard. The clerk will now lower all hands on Zoom in order to take testimony in the order previously stated. If you wish to speak in favor, or neutral, or in opposition, I will make a call for each. Then you may raise your hand at that time. We have nobody in the room, so we can skip for that. Do we have anybody participating remotely? So we may proceed through that. Then I will mention, just in case, I'm not seeing it, but is there anyone else here in the room or on Zoom who wishes to speak? Thank you. So we can proceed, right? We can skip through some of the formalities here when we don't have anybody that is providing public comment. So I guess that we will proceed ahead to our commissioners. Do you have any additional questions at this time before we would close the public hearing? And this is acceptable, correct? I'm just.
Yeah, I would just state one more time for the record that we do not have anybody participating.
Okay,
online,
yes,
or
we do not have anybody in the chambers here, and therefore nobody participating from the chambers, and we have nobody participating on Zoom either at this time for the public hearing.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. We do have one attendee on Zoom.
Okie dokie. And do they wish to testify?
They're not raising their hand at this time.
Thank you. I'll give them one more opportunity. Listening in on Zoom, if you would like to post public comment, now is your opportunity. If not, we shall proceed. So commissioners, do you have any additional questions before we?
Mr. Chairman, is that for staff or for the applicant? Because I have questions for staff, I believe.
We will have an opportunity, yes,
Thank you.
for staff here after we close the public hearing. Okay. Being no public testimony, there is probably no need for rebuttal on behalf. So before I do close this public hearing, commissioners, now, are there any final questions for the applicant, not for staff, for the applicant?
No.
Okay. So at this time, we will close the public hearing. We will deliberate. No new information may be provided and questions may be directed only to city staff during this deliberation. So commissioners, now is the time for questions for staff.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. When I'm looking at the diagram, I noticed that there's a swale to the north and south for drainage. But if we were looking at this, this seems like a perfect opportunity to be building out the block system. I'm wondering, with future development, is there not going to be alleys? Or is this, will there be alleys? Yay, nay?
Oh, are you talking about the space to the
I'm
north?
looking at page 3 of 9 of the packet, and it says, and it says that there is a catch basin that's shaded. And there's also one to the south which says catch basin, see detail 2.0 sheet 7, stormwater infiltration swale. And I was curious, with the potential development of the subdivision to the south, would there be an alley which would somewhat fit in with the comprehensive plan with the idea of building in blocks, or am I missing?
Well, currently it's shown for stormwater storage. So I would not foresee that would be turned into an alley.
So at no time in this development would there be an alley at this?
They're not proposing a further dedicated right of way for an alley, no.
Thank you.
Commissioners, do we have other questions for staff?
I don't.
No.
Okay. So then it would be that point of the evening where I would love to entertain a motion.
I have a comment,
Oh, yes.
which I don't think this project is going to push it over the limit, but I feel like at some point Schweitzer Cutoff and Woodland Drive, Great Northern are gonna have a capacity issue. Because there isn't a lot of ways out of here. And I know we've talked about this before with other projects and with the studies that were put forward, it didn't look like each project alone was gonna cause an issue, but at some point, all these projects, once built out, especially, and the stuff to the west and to the northwest and to the east and to further to the east and so forth, all the way around, I guess. At some point, I don't know if there being a plan of what the traffic flow will end up looking like, but at some point, I feel like it's considerable because of just the location with the airport, and since there's no way to make a cross street, you know, across the runway, of course. But anyway, I feel like at some, probably not right now, but it's on the horizon as long as if projects like this keep coming up and stacking up, or bigger projects, which I feel like this one does fit in with this area really well. Multifamily doesn't quite fit, although I think it could. So I'm in favor of the project overall.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I have an opportunity to respond to that comment?
Yes.
I just wanted to note that we do they're called concurrency analysis. So to your very point, when our own independent traffic engineers are reviewing an applicant's traffic study, they're actually looking at all the known developments that we have applications for, and they are combining all of those trips together so that they're able to foresee what that may look like in the next horizon, to your very point. And then in addition to that, independent from private development applications, the city does its own modeling for our overall system. And we used to update that about every 10 or so years. Given our current growth, we're elevating how often we're looking at that and doing it on a more continuous basis, but no later than 5 years is what we've adopted. So, for your information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Planning and Zoning Commission, after consideration of the criteria and relevant standard of Idaho Code and Sandpoint City Code, recommend the Sandpoint City Council approve the request by Carousel Holdings LLC for the Boyer Farm Estates Phase 2 subdivision on parcel number RP S39500030010 and legally described as Lot 1, Block 3, Boyer Farms Estates, Section 10, Township 57 North, Range 2 West, Boise Meridian, Bonner County, Idaho, according to the plat thereof recorded in Book 18 of Plats, page 61, subject to the following conditions. No lot, number 1, no lot shall have a drive access onto Samuelson Avenue. Number 2, a development agreement to include standard terms and conditions associated with public infrastructure improvements shall be provided to City Council for approval. Based on evidence, records, and testimony, the reasons for recommending approval are, number 1, staff has followed the notice procedures applicable to subdivisions contained in Sandpoint City Code, Title 9, Chapter 9. Number 2, based on information presented at the hearing and the placement of limitations through conditions, the application is in compliance with the subdivision and zoning requirements in Sandpoint City Code. And number 3, the proposed subdivision is consistent with overall planning goals and objectives.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We will have a roll call vote on this. Mr. Dunkel?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
I mean, Mrs. Boyd. Sorry.
I've been called
Mr. I know, I'm just going down the order. Mr. McGrahan
Yes.
and Mr. Camp.
Yes.
Mr. Ahmet?
Yes.
Mr. Polito?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion passes. With no further business before the commission this evening, the meeting is now adjourned at 6:00 p.m.